Go ahead.
Oh, wait, do you hear the voice? Did it say like recording
Hmm.
in progress? Okay,
Yes, yes, yes.
lit.
Recording in progress.
Oh, that's a classic. Well, Jeff, thank you,
Indeed.
thank you for agreeing to do this. It's my pleasure to have you on. This is
It's fine. Like if I wasn't doing this, like I'd just be online fucking, I don't know, troller bowlering anyways.
so
So all
boring.
good. All good. All
What are
good.
you up to online? Are you playing Realm or like ARAM?
I mean, if other people are online, I'm down to play whatever with them to socialize. But otherwise, I mean, I was like, maybe I should try to finish a little life before I go back to school. This always happens to me during break. I tell myself I buy a bunch of books. I'm like, I'm gonna finish all of this, and then it like doesn't happen, and then it rolls over to the next one, and then I'm also like, oh, maybe I should do some research reading too,
Hmm.
and then I don't do any of it, and then 4 days before I go back, I'm like, oh fuck, I need to read more, and then I open up my books. I'm like 50 pages into all of them, and then grief.
No, it'd be like that. I feel that.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like trying to rush through a little life, but I don't
You
know.
have a few days. You're going to
I have a
Monterey
few days. I'm
time to
like,
read when you go to Monterey?
I don't know if we're going tomorrow anymore. I think we're just going out for dinner or lunch or something. I don't
Oh,
know. Like I'm basically marooned at home these days since
oh,
my
shit.
since my mother canceled my car insurance today.
Oh, shit.
Or
Damn.
she
No, no, I
canceled
get
it without
that. I get
telling me, and then now I found out I have no car insurance. So I was actually driving on no car insurance. Actually, I don't know if I should say that. I don't know if that's illegal or not, but
that. I don't.
regardless, I was driving with no car insurance yesterday, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
No, I feel that. I've done that as well.
I mean,
So,
it's fine. I was going to Safeway, like
okay,
unless I like horrendously effed up and crashed into someone's house, I think I'm good.
exactly. No, you're chilling. You're chilling. But Jeff, can we get an introduction generally on who you are? And like, I know it's a really difficult thing to answer.
Okay, okay,
So
okay.
just for like basic questions, we can get like, who are you? Like, what do you study? Like, what year are
Yeah,
you?
yeah, yeah.
That kind of like
Hmm.
basic shit. Whatever you want to talk about.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm Jeffrey Ma. I'm a senior or a rising senior, or as of next Tuesday, I'm a senior at Amherst College. I was Phil's roommate second semester sophomore year.
Yeah, and soon to
Does
be.
that sound right?
Yeah, yeah.
Soon to be sweet man again, but and then yeah, yeah. Yeah, Ankit vacated the bed, the room in March, and then I moved in with you. And then after you went to study abroad, I took your room, and then Derek actually wanted a single, so then he just moved to.
I don't know.
He moved to the Triangle somewhere, so
Oh, okay.
I don't actually know which one either. Maybe it was Hitch. I think he moved to Hitch.
Oh shit.
Okay, regardless, like we've had some troller bowler rooming situations, but all good next semester when we end up in the suite. So
Fascinating.
yeah, serendipity, we shall say.
Serendipity. What do you study?
Um, I'm at Amherst. I am a history as well as an Asian language and civilizations major. My concentration is in Chinese history. Um, anything else I should add?
I guess like what do you do
Uh,
on campus generally?
okay, yeah. Basically, I just live in the science center and read all day. Like, I feel like, yeah, that's basically what I do. It's like every Wednesday, I go to the science center and I print out 250 pages of reading to the horror of Hannah, who's sitting at the table because I have to borrow the stapler from her. And then she's like, Jeffrey, why are you printing out 250 pages? And then I ask myself the same question. Um, and then I come home and do the exact same thing. So basically, I, I, my main job on campus is to kill trees, and on the side, I do some research in late imperial China.
Hmm, beautiful.
But yeah, main thing is killing trees.
Got it. Got it. And I guess would it be fair to call you the darling of the transportation committee on campus?
Oh,
A
okay. That's a
forward.
different Phil. Okay. Okay, fine. I have affiliation with the Amherst Association of Students. Last year I was secretary, and there's a lot of stuff that job entails, but for the most part it was just whenever a student wanted to book a vehicle, they would text me and then I'd have to figure it out for them if it wasn't working on their end. So, yeah, I love the AS vehicles. They're my darlings, but I've retired. I've since then I've retired, so that's Headley's job now. he can lose brain cells over that. Not me anymore.
Oh yeah, are you rolling Yushen next year?
You see, yeah, yeah. I'm still one of the gardeners. I think they'll hire someone else. So if anybody else is interested in working in the fall and winter,
Okay.
you should. Well, actually, I don't know if they're hiring yet, but I'm sure they'll hire someone else.
Yeah.
Unless I don't think they're gonna make me do 5 days a week. That sounds awful.
Yeah, that's pretty awful.
But yeah, I am also the gardener for the UCN. What is the official title? Like the
Embassy,
Amherst Friendship Garden,
something like that. Yeah.
whatever it's called. I
We'll
mean,
probably I'll probably like put that in post or like put that somewhere. So we'll have that accessible.
okay, all good.
That's fascinating. Well, Jeff, where did you grow up? Because I don't know. Did you grow up originally in San Francisco, like all your life, or
Yeah, yeah. I was born in Sunnyvale, which is like 10 miles north of where I live now in South Bay. Well, all this is in South Bay. That is the Bay Area. That is like greater SF area of California, aka Asian hellhole. But yeah, I pretty much like I think I lived for 2 years in San Jose, and then we moved to where I live now when I was two, and we've been here since. Yeah, pretty much I've been here my entire life.
what are your impressions of the place? I know that's like a little
Impressions? I
but
mean, it's like
I don't know much about the place, to be honest.
like I don't know, like it's exactly what you think about when you think about Asian California, right? I think like what was the term like an ethnoburb, I think was the technical term, where like the entire suburb is just all like I would say at least when we moved here, the district was relatively white, the school district that is. But over the years, it's become progressively more East Asian and more South Asian.
Okay,
Yeah, like I think Indians, Chinese, Vietnamese, and Koreans take about like 60% of the school, if not more. Yeah.
goddamn, interesting. Do you feel much nostalgia for the place after having spent a lot of time in Amherst and just in other places at this point?
I mean, I don't know about nostalgia, but it's very much comfort. Like,
Mhm.
how do I say this? Like when I'm at home, I can. Someone's always gonna be home, and someone's always down to hang and
That's good.
grab boba, or it's just something like banal Asian behavior, like getting pho and getting boba, getting ramen and getting boba, getting high and getting boba. Yeah, pretty much. Like
That's, that's super
it
fun.
is what it is. It
So to
it's familiar. I don't know if it's nostalgic necessarily.
see. Oh, just funny. I just like how frequently you use the word banal in like normal conversation.
I
Really.
just there's a lot of things at home where I'm just why is this a thing? And then when I partake in it, I'm like, oh, that's why it's a thing.
Hmm, I see. That's very interesting. Do you want to end up and do you want to end up in SF later on in life, or do you have a dream location you want to be if you want to be a professor?
Not really. I mean, like I don't think I hold SF area in like particularly high regard compared to other places that I've been. And I don't know if I want to raise kids here either. That's definitely not a great.
I
I don't
see.
think it's a great environment to raise kids in.
I see.
Um, I don't know. I feel like there aren't many employment opportunities in higher ed in the Bay Area. Well, it's not the worst, but at the same time, housing is so outrageously expensive here that it's pretty difficult to be an academic and make a living in here in this area.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Would you want to live in Boston? Do you think?
I don't know. Like I've never really stayed in Boston for long. I've only been in Boston for like 3 or 4 days at a time. So I don't feel like I know Boston very well as a city or as a place,
That's valid.
much less like a home.
Okay. No, that's just
Yeah. I'm not sure about that.
interesting. Interesting. No, I feel that because I definitely felt the same way before the summer, and still like now. I only lived there for like 2 months, so I don't really don't know
Hmm.
the city very well. But yeah, I mean, it could be an interesting place to live since there's so many
I think
schools.
it's also like I don't think I've ever actually lived in an urban like an actual city
Hmm.
because like where I live now is kind of like suburban hell where it's just suburb after suburb after suburb with like only two. actual cities in
Yeah.
the area, and like I sure as hell am not going to San Jose downtown or like God forbid San Francisco downtown on like a weekly basis. My God, that's awful. So I don't know how much I would actually enjoy living in a city.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered moving out the US outside the US for your academic
I
work?
mean, I don't know about long term, but like if it's a 1 or 2 year like postdoc or something, I'd be interested. But actually immigrating to a different country,
Uh,
that's a rough time to do that.
yeah, I know. Like, I feel like China is difficult for a lot of reasons. For
What's
like,
like,
for
yeah.
instance, but I don't know if you could like live in like Singapore, or, like Korea, or some other like interesting.
Mm, I mean, I think culturally it would be fine, but like, how the hell are you gonna get naturalized in Korea or Japan? China's a whole different issue when it comes to naturalization. I don't know. I like, yeah, it's just so difficult to yeah.
See what you mean. See what
I
you mean.
guess like if there's employment, I guess we'd go, but
Yeah, I mean,
barring that, it seems yeah.
I think there's surprising amounts. At least when I was in Singapore, there's a surprising amount of Americans, and also
Mm,
like Europeans that were professors that ended up there. Just because I think the model of Singapore, honestly, is we're a tiny country, so we will just pay you a lot of money to come over here.
yeah, yeah.
But
I mean, I guess certainly it's like if should the opportunity arise and I have no better option, I'll do it. But I certainly don't think I'm planning my life or considering that as like a option I'm pursuing at the moment, I guess.
I see. That's interesting. Okay, no, that's good to know. That's good to know. Jeff, what do you do when you don't have schoolwork or you have like free time? What do you
I'm
like to
schoolwork?
indulge? Yeah, what do you like to indulge in? Like, what do you
I
enjoy?
mean, I think these days it's just play games,
Hmm.
read for fun, or consume dumpster fire media.
Mm, it's fascinating.
Yeah, at the moment it's mostly K dramas, but
Fascinating.
yeah,
Do you have any particularly recommended works?
no, I only watch disgusting dumpster fires that
Really?
are not worth that are not worth.
I see.
No,
Hmm,
don't ever watch K dramas. A waste of time. Actually, it's not just K dramas. Don't watch C dramas either, or Japanese dramas.
I see. Is that your
They're
favorite
not worth your
genre?
time. Hmm?
Or is that your favorite genre?
Well,
Dramas in general?
well, I don't really watch American like TV shows. I've never watched Breaking Bad. I've never watched Game of Thrones. I never watched. I don't know. I don't know any other big American TV shows.
Some
Yeah,
show friends. Yeah.
yeah,
Interesting. Interesting.
yeah. Because growing up, I watched anime, and then I don't really watch anime anymore. So I guess it's really just dramas now.
Hmm,
And even those, I just skip through them. So
hmm.
I don't know. I just think I don't have the patience to watch shows
I see. I see. What are you playing?
when I'm playing these days. Well, it's the same as always. If you guys are on, then it's usually League or Rotmeg.
True. I thought
I don't
about
know
that.
how did we start playing Rotmeg? I'm not
What's
really
new?
sure why for the past 2 weeks we've been just trolling around on that game. Like that game is not good. Regardless, like basically just multiplayer social games with friends, and then I must admit I am like a degenerate and I play Genshin Impact.
Hmm,
Um, and I've spent money on that game, so don't do that either. That's a bad thing. So basically, yeah, like social games with friends and then gacha games with my phone. That's really it.
what level are you on pad? Like you're one of
On
the few in
pad,
a long time.
oh yeah, Puzzles and Dragons. I am currently rank. Okay, but I've been playing for years, and this is mostly like I don't play this game, but I've invested so much time and so much login that I just got the Anya title from the event. But like that's why I like I'm rank 884.
Oh my god. That's
But I've also been like daily login for like 7 or 8 years. So it's like, I'm in too deep, I'm in too deep.
fascinating.
What is this thing?
What are you looking
Okay,
at?
yeah, regardless, like I'm in too deep to to pull out, so
Mm, I like that figure of speech. It's very interesting.
yeah, so it's just stuck with me now, Puzzles and Dragons.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Very interesting. I'm curious about your scholarly interests as well. It's like, how did you? Yeah, I mean, this is a harsh transition, but
Yes,
I'm curious about how you found a love for history, because I understand that
for
originally what you wanted to study when you came to Amherst, like you're like an art boy, but then you're like
yeah,
on history. So
yeah,
curious how you made that pivot and
yeah.
there.
This is another dark chapter in my life. I came to college as an art major. I wanted to study art history. I wanted to study Western classical art, like Renaissance and like modern, like all the good stuff, all the classics.
And
Um, what was wrong with that major? It's too white and too rich.
mm,
That's actually there's no better way to put it. That's literally why I dropped the major. Was the material I was fine with, and I was quite happy with what I was studying. But everybody that I was studying with, so yeah, when everybody else in the major is like their mother and their father, their daddy is an art dealer. I'm like, okay, I can't compete with that. Like, man's flying home on a private jet. Like,
see.
yeah. Also, some of the art history professors are kind of nuts. I don't know if I want to say that on record, but
Yeah,
you
I
know
think
what I mean.
we'll
Like,
cut that out.
there's some. Regardless, to
Yeah.
summarize, art history is interesting. It's a really wide and really rich field. Okay, I think that speaks for itself.
Fascinating. How did
Also,
you find it?
mhm.
Oh no, I was just gonna transition, but I'm gonna let you finish your thought. What were you
No, no,
saying?
no. No. I think that speaks for itself. I think that speaks for itself.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. How did you find Chinese history or Asian history?
Asian history? I don't know. I feel like I grew up like playing like a lot of games that were like I still play like Total War Three Kingdoms, but just like battle simulation games. Like I feel like in middle school I definitely went through like the military history. I love Roman history. I love Chinggis Khan type situation with my friends. But I think more seriously, freshman year I worked with Professor Chow during the summer, and I think that was actually a good experience in terms of actually recognizing, the study of history is not just a bunch of dates and a bunch of information dump, but there's actually analysis involved, and there's actual, like it can be a satisfying pursuit that there are sort of goals and there are sort of things to be done in the field that aren't just root memorization and all that. I don't know. Like I feel like my grandpa was a communist and he taught communist stuff
Right.
at some university. So I feel like growing up, he did kind of like preach at me about stuff, history stuff, and that's always been sort of back there. But I think it really was after I got to college that history in particular I found interesting. I think before that I was just like, I'm going to study humanities, F computer science. I'm bad at STEM.
Mm.
Why was I an art history major when I came to college? Whatever. I think I've just like deleted that part of my memory because it's so shameful.
Let's see.
Yeah, don't study art history.
What
Don't
do you
study art
think?
history.
It's just interesting.
No, art history is not it.
I see. I see. Hmm. Was George Chiao a big step in you making that transition? Would you say? Or was
I love George. He's an interesting guy. I mean, I don't think he like necessarily like he didn't give me
mm,
like a mind explosion type thing, but it's just like recognizing that history scholarship is serious stuff, and like it's not just a Wikipedia page printed nicely and bound in a book. That historians are actually demonstrating important things and are showing us, and are reaching important conclusions in their studies, and that most of all that I can actually do it myself and contribute to the field. I think that feels quite nice, you know, and it's not just mm, I think it's just that it that the results of history scholarship can actually matter to, you know, topics that are relevant today. Whereas I feel like when I was doing art history stuff, a lot of it was just very intangible or very like, here's the aesthetic value, which I felt like was more far removed
Yeah,
from from my daily life.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Art history felt more like a hobby. History felt more like a proper pursuit.
No, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Okay. Aside from like Chiao, are there other like mentors or like minds that you're inspired by in history? Like not
Shout out to Professor Semyonov.
Semyonov.
Well, I actually love Professor Semyonov.
Interesting.
He's yeah, he's a visiting professor um who came after the Russian invasion. He used to teach at St. Petersburg and he left after that.
Oh shit.
Um I mean, Semyonov is so funny. I don't think he intends to be funny, but but he's funny in a good way. He's funny in a good way. No, I think you know, some professors like come across in their lectures as very like mimetic or very, you know, like troll. But you know, I think most of my professors at Amherst in my department have done a pretty good job of actually, you know, teaching me whether it be actual course material or like scholarly, more like how to do like skills, like actual like historical methods and stuff like that. But I'm sorry, I'm just talking about Santa being a meme. Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry. Sasha is
Do
such a
you have like
troller bowler.
anecdotes you can share? 'Cause I
No,
know
no,
this.
this is like private stuff. This is private stuff. Like I was
Oh,
asking
okay.
for a rec letter, and then he emailed me, and then basically, okay, like this is off the record. All this is off the record. Okay, like basically, I was asking for a rec letter, and he was like, "Yes, I'll do it." But just note that you should have one from an Asian specialist, since I am not an East Asianist. And I was like, Professor, like, okay, so are you gonna write it? And you say, "Oh yeah, don't worry." And I was like, "What the fuck?" Basically, man's a troll. Okay, man's a fucking troll is what I'm trying to say. Okay, sorry, starting over. My point is, yeah, like I think George did a good job of introducing me. Oh, sorry, I just called him Professor Chow. Professor Chow did a really good job of actually introducing me to my field and you know showing this is how scholars in Chinese history do scholarship. Like you know these are the primary sources they're working with. This is how they're analyzing them, and you know here are the open questions in you know in these subfields you know of frontier history or of you know of ethnic history or of you know or of scholarship on the Republican era. You know like he did a really good job of actually showing me the ropes. Whereas Professor Semyonov and Professor Gordon, who I took a seminar with my was that junior year? I think it was junior year. Whereas a lot they showed me a lot of like more the theoretical side. Like here are theories that you can apply in your own scholarship, or here are theories that you can sort of take parts from, or here are theories you can engage with that can help to give your research more structure or more you know an ideological foundation or these kinds of things and obviously you know both of these are important you know Professor Chow always scolds me for writing too much theory and then not doing enough source work. Yes your honor, I'm guilty. I plead guilty. So you know it's a balance between here's all the sources you want to be working with, here's the you know the actual reading, the rereading, the translation work, and on the other side, it's like the theoretical stuff. You know, here's the framework, here's the paradigm, here's the underlying ideology. So
Fascinating.
basically, I love all my professors equally. I'm a communist.
Mm, I like that, Jeff. I like that. Jeff, what is your specific research question or like field of
My
research?
specific research
You
question.
have one? Like, I don't know. Yeah, you don't have to have.
Well, I mean, like when I proposed my project, it was a very okay. It's a very specific question that's very open ended. So the original question was just like, how did okay? So most of my research is on a specific ethno-religious group in China called the Hui, who are predominantly Muslim, but they're like a predominantly okay. They're also called the Muslim Chinese because the two characteristics that are sort of the main things is one is they mostly are Chinese speakers, Mandarin that is, Mandarin Chinese speakers, and that are Muslim. There are some like gray areas depending on like how people usually use the term Hui and how the government actually defines it. So it's both Muslim Chinese and also like all of the descendants of historically Muslim communities in China that spoke Chinese. That's okay. I think I might have just regardless. It's a huge mess. The easiest heuristic is just all the Muslims in China that aren't the other nine minority groups that are also happen to be Muslim, like Uyghur. So as you can see, like this it's very difficult to define exactly who or not who isn't Hui. And my research question originally was just, how did this label arise? How did this group come to identify as Hui over the course of the 19th and 20th centuries? Well, as it turns out, it's very difficult to answer this question. That's why there's no real consensus if you ignore the state, which has its own agenda about defining them. It's very difficult to actually pinpoint, where does this arise? Which is why my current thesis research examines the work um, of a particular Hui Marxist historian named Jamal al-Din Baishouyi. I think he was born in 1909 and he died in 2000. But he's probably one of the most prominent Marxist historians of 20th century China. I think he joins the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, in the 50s, basically. So he actually joins quite late, but he becomes one of the primary architects of ethnic policy and of sort of what is the orthodox position in terms of minority nationalities, the relation between China's borderlands, China's territoriality, that is, and its minority groups. Oh, actually, for reference, China has 56 official groups that it calls Minzu. The largest is the Han Chinese, who are like, I think, like 94% of the population, and the other 6% are distributed among 55 state recognized minority groups, of which the Hui are one of them. And Bai Shouyi is actually one of the architects of this state policy, or he's one of the architects of it. And his his work actually sort of exhibits pre-communist and then post-communist kind of differences. And reading through his scholarship through his entire life kind of reveals the tensions, inconsistencies, and sort of configurations of both Hui identity. Do we understand Hui as a religious marker, as a ethnic marker, as a even a racial marker, or is it a nationality like the Chinese government says today? And in doing so, in sort of examining all his work, I come to position on the one hand the formation of Hui identity in the 20th century, along with the formation of um, competing configurations of the Chinese nation. How does Chinese nationalism conceive of the people that are the Chinese people? And these two questions are kind of bound up. If Hui is understood as a religious marker, then a Han Chinese man who believes in Islam would be Hui, and the Hui man who apostatizes would be Han. But that's not actually how it really works. Like, I don't think most people would buy that this theoretical this thought experiment. So it's kind of a mess, and every decade of the 20th century seemed to bring with it new ideas about how we position Hui as well as the Chinese nation in terms of how we understand these concepts. So
God, that's interesting.
all still in the formative stage. So a lot of crap in there that I don't know if I'm going to have time to actually write about, but all the stuff that's swimming up there.
So I guess how are you doing the research itself? Like, who are you looking into? Like, what thinkers are you looking
Mm-hmm.
into? Is there a lot of primary material about this dude?
Uh-huh. Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of people would agree, or I think I could just say broadly that my thesis is primarily historiographic. It's not a particularly primary source heavy.
Okay.
Like I'm not going out there and going like, I found this document in a village well. Let's see what it says. Like it's not that kind of project. Much of what I know about Bai's life comes from like biographies that have been written in the past 10 years. I mean, excuse me. Over the past 20 years since Bai's death, he's been kind of deified by the party as like one of the
Oh,
paramount historians of the early PRC. So there's been a couple of like, I guess what I could describe as like hagiographic biographies, the ones that go like he was born in this year, but then they also go like, and this is why he was the communist, like exemplary communist comrade of the like that kind of language. But just going through these kinds of books, well, it reveals the state's attitudes towards this person, but it also yields actual biographical information about him. The good thing about his sort of apotheosis by the party is that, well, all of his works have been republished in a set in the early 2000s, and I got a copy, I think, from Dartmouth's library. For some reason had a copy of all seven collected sets of his writings. So I can pretty much go through and find nearly everything he's published over the past, basically through his entire lifetime. I can find everything that he's published, and while yes, these are secondary sources, I can read these secondary sources as primary sources, and that's sort of the primary. That's the body of my research, is actually going through his writings and going like, oh, in the 1920s and 30s, he talks about the Hui community as a religious one. He's saying our Hui religious brethren, what's the word? Is it brethren?
yeah,
Are
right.
like are like he'll say like our Muslim brothers, rise up and defend China. But then in the 50s, that language disappears. He's going like, we are not a religion, we are an ethnicity, and anybody who denies this is, you know, disrespect. Like that kind. Like there's a shift in language between his writings across the decades, and that's most of what my primary source analysis ends up becoming.
Jeff, I'm not familiar. What is his what does the term historiographic mean?
Oh yeah, historiography is usually taken to be the history of history.
Oh,
Um, like it's the history of how historians' points of view, how their historians' work has shifted. Like one of the classic examples is like the Civil War. Like a historiographic study of the Civil War would reveal that like 100 years ago, most historians. I don't know if this is actually true. Don't quote me on this, but like an example would be like American historians 100 years ago believed the consensus was that the Civil War was primarily over states' rights, and then over the past 50 years, we've kind of gone like the states' rights to own slaves. So the Civil War is really about slavery, but it's these shifts in consensus among historians. That's an example of like a historiographic question. My thesis is historiographic in the sense that I'm making an argument about something through the production of history done by 20th century historians. But the easiest way to put it is just the history of history, or the
got it,
history of historical scholarship.
got it.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's cool. So I guess like your project is at least like it's like through the Mellon Mays program, so it is sort of a shorter term thing since you're just pursuing it during your undergraduate career. But
Mm-hmm.
I guess when you go on to your PhD and since you want to be a professor, like just maybe postdoctoral research and then like to your professorship, you're gonna have like a lot of time to do research and
Yeah,
it's being like researching issues of that pertain to the way people is a very like personal like issue for
I
you
mean,
to do work
mm-hmm.
on. Is that accurate? Like, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I started this project as kind of part of a family history project. My grandpa said the family is way, but no one else in the family is, and no one is practicing. No one is a practicing Muslim. So it's in some ways personal, but also not, completely. Like I'm not completely smitten to my project. I would say that the reason why I ended up doing this project was because it kind of connects. It sort of spans and entwines my actual research, or like my broader interests. like in terms of field, I'm working in late imperial Chinese history as well as like early modern, or I guess just modern Chinese history. And then in terms of my like my fields of interest are like ethnic history, frontier history, in some ways social history. And this undergraduate project kind of helped me connect those dots. I mean, I'm currently writing my grad applications, and
Mm.
usually I'm just pitching myself like I want to build on my undergraduate research in some way, even if it's not directly. Like there are other question like identity or ethnicity related questions of 20th century China that remain unexplored. Like I think one of the classic ones, or like the one I'm thinking about the most right now, is affirmative action in China. Like China today still gives pretty decent affirmative action to its minority groups. Like if you're I don't want to name a specific group, but if you're part of like a non-Han group, it's easier for you to enter university. You can have a lower test score on the standardized test, and you could get into college. And I think a comprehensive history of this system would contribute to our understanding of ethnic policy in China. I think ethnic policy in the PRC as a whole, as a topic, remains relatively underexplored. The only book I can think about off the top of my head is Thomas Mullany's. Um, oh God, I don't remember the title of the book is, but it explores like China's ethnic classification in the 1950s, and that's kind of it, at least at the top of my head. So I think ethnicity as an issue remains unexplored in modern Chinese history, at least in history. I think there's been a good number of ethnographic, like anthropological studies, but I think history it remains underexplored, and I could definitely see myself working in that field. So
Got it. And I guess in grad school, how much leeway will you have to choose your own topic, or is it largely dictated by what the professor, mentor you work with?
I mean, there's like a famous horror story of I don't I think it's like a European studies professor at Cornell who like you would go into okay, this is quoting from a professor that I know, so this has probably gone through multiple mouths of telephone, so I don't know if this is exact, but the story goes that there's a professor at Cornell who teaches, I think, like French medieval history. You would go to his like if you got accepted to the program, he would go to his office hours on day one. He'd point at you and go like, "Okay, you're doing the cloth guilds," and that would just be your PhD. Is you would just get assigned a guild and you would do it. But fortunately, most history advisorships don't work like that anymore. I think so. There is a certain amount of leeway. Obviously, you're trying to find an advisor who will be able to support whatever project you're interested, but you should also make sure the project you have in mind actually your advisor can help you with it, and you're not just on your own out there drowning. So there's a push and pull, but I don't. You have a good amount of freedom, but there's a push and pull.
That's good. No, that's really good. I'm also curious broadly what being a historian is like, because I guess the things I have studied or majored in do change my lived experience in general. So I'm curious how that in maybe intangible or more tangible ways sort of shapes how you view the world, like how you react when you read certain news articles or talk to people about it. Since I think history is a unique discipline because there are a lot of like I don't know bros who are interested in like history or like
Okay,
tanks or
gotcha.
like whatever the fuck, you know. Like so I'm just curious like how you feel about that. And also I feel like history has like, you know, some public perceptions like people want to know history, but I don't know if there's struggles that historians have or things about, you know, there are
Hmm.
things that come with being a historian that people aren't aware of.
Yeah, I mean, there's a Chinese historian or a historian of China at UMass actually named I think Stephen R. Platt,
Mm.
who works in public history. Like he writes books for the general public to consume. Actually, his second book, I think it's called Autumn in the Heavenly Kingdom, is an excellent read for non-specialists. I would strongly recommend it. It's actually like it's a great book to read.
Okay.
I'm sure his later books have also been have been geared towards the reading public. But so there have been historians who want to work in public history, who want to help publicize it and make it more accessible. I will say that I work in a not very accessible field to the layman. I mean, Phil, you read A Translucent Mirror by Dr. Pramila Kyle, and um, I barely understood that book, so I can only imagine how awful it was for you to read it.
Yes.
I mean, this is not to say that their scholarship is bad or that their scholarship is, worthless. Like that book is brilliant in its own way. That doesn't mean it's accessible to most people. So I do think there's an issue there in terms of public history and accessibility. As to like how it affects my daily life, I don't know. I guess like when I read some news article, I think it's like I like you end up with a particular distaste for pundits and like China experts. Like when I read the articles, I'm like, either my reaction is yeah, no shit, or it's like, okay, now what? Like a lot of them, I'm like, yeah, I think it's just when you read the news, you get pissed more often by like poor writing or I don't know. I don't think it really affects my life that much.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
I think it's just like usually when I'm working, I have my brain turned on, and then the second I stop working, I just turn my brain off and go back to being an idiot. So
It's a good description. I say. Also, I'm curious, like how I guess it's a personal thing for every historian, but I'm curious how important you think it is for you personally to be tuned in with present events and like how to tie
mhm.
because I'm curious, like if you are ultimately a professor and you teach your students, the vast majority of your students are not going to want to be researchers in history. So
Yeah.
I guess when you want them to take things away from your class, I'm curious, like if you want to impress certain things upon them about learning about history that carry on to like their
Hmm.
parents or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, how should I say this? Like personally, I think I find history more appealing when it actually connects to the present, which is that's why I primarily work in late imperial and modern Chinese history. Like that's like 1600s and onwards, because in my mind, most things before that are too far away from the present day for me to care enough, I guess. And I know some people, I've had this exact discussion with most people, and I realize like by the end of the night, I'm contradicting myself. So this is mostly like a gut check, not like I've actually thought this through. But in my mind, it's just in my gut, history that's closer to the present, that has more tangible or not tangible, more apparent link to the present. I find that more useful and more appealing. As for, impressing upon students, I think this is why I find like theoretical history theory so interesting, and why George always Professor Chow. And that's why I just not calling him George. That's why I think that's why I always find Professor Chow scolding me about it is about doing too much theory. Is that oftentimes I think it's theory that is most you can sort of take it and run with it and use it in your daily life. Like once you understand how nationalism works as like a thing, you start to notice, when a newspaper is explicitly sort of invoking a patriotic theme, but the argument they're actually making is quite shoddy. Like these things become more apparent if you have the theoretical backing to understand the dynamics of nationalism, right? So like as opposed to the sort of the historical nitty gritty, like the grain price correlation in Gansu province in the 1780s, like yeah, that's a critically important data set that helps us understand Chinese colonization out west. But to the average student who's not going to give two flying fricks about history once they finish your class, you know, the theoretical stuff that they can take and run with is going to be infinitely more important and more relevant to their lives than the specifics. So weirdly, I think that's why I find theory appealing and why I think theory should be taught, and why, or, sorry, I'm saying theory in a very broad kind of, I'm using the word theory very broadly. I should say that. I should give that warning. But why these kinds of things I think are necessary to teach kids or teach students, not kids.
That makes sense. Interesting.
Yeah. You
And
can clearly see that my brain is not it's not editing what I'm saying. I'm just saying it and editing as I go.
it's fine. That's better. That's better than
Yeah.
honestly. It's more fun. But what was I gonna say? I will ask an ignorant question. What value do you think history produces in general? Like, why do colleges have history departments? Like, what do you want history to do if it's not as effective as you'd like it to do?
Why is history useful, huh? What does it do? I have no fucking clue. Like, I think a lot of these kinds of questions for me, I can't rationally answer it. Like in my mind, it's like most like if I were to actually rationalize it out, I think I would come to the conclusion that the vast majority of history professors are useless and do nothing useful.
Interesting.
Because I think my brain just goes to like a utilitarian argument and goes like, okay, only the historians that can actually work for a policy think tank deserve to have their jobs. Everybody else should get fired. And then I stop and like, whoa, wait, that can't be the right answer, right? And then I just stop trying to use logic because I'll end up at that conclusion again. So I think when I see a history project, usually I'll gut check and go like, do I think this is gonna be relevant? And then there's just an immediate yes or no, and then that's it. There's no deeper thought. Like I think history has the usual argument I hear, like, it's contributing to the vast sum of human knowledge. I'm like, okay, so is like the shape of my turd in the toilet. Okay, like, great. I get it, your turd's really shiny, but it's a turd nonetheless. So I don't know. I think this is part of why I find sort of modern history more appealing is because I can not that it's necessarily intrinsically more valuable than ancient history, but just that I can convince myself that it has greater relevance to the public. Like I think the reality is that most historians' works are not getting picked up by some think tank and being implemented policy wise. You're really putting me on a spot. Let me think, Phil.
Yeah, no, sorry. It's like a loaded
Uh,
question. I think it's a very
uh,
loaded question for.
Also, this is not a real answer, but I'll say this: some of the best history works I've read are those that sort of correct older fallacies or older misunderstandings of a certain thing. And I think maybe that's what I see like a value of good history book. It's like a corrective. If a societal perception of a certain issue is wrong and I can prove that it's wrong, then I think that's a necessary correction that should exist and that should be researched and that should be published.
Hmm.
And if I can sort of trumpet a book, Dr. Eric Schlussel's Land of Strangers, brilliant book. I think he corrects sort of our misunderstandings about 19th century Xinjiang, does a brilliant job when he's doing it. And I think that's a good example of sort of history that I found impactful and I found relevant and I found that should be worthy of being published.
Hmm. Got it. That's an interesting answer. I mean, do you think there's value in you telling the story of certain ethnic groups or clearing up certain historical wrongs that should be corrected? I mean, I guess that's sort of utility. That is a utility of historical.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put it this way: is that I find it difficult to motivate the study of history as a whole. I find that to be a very difficult thing to justify or motivate, but I find it less difficult to motivate a specific research project. Like if you ask me to motivate my own research, I think I could give you a decent explanation for why I think this is important. Da 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 da. But it's really when I aggregate all of history together that it becomes very difficult for me to justify or motivate. So
Hmm.
I think like what you said is certainly one. I think the histories of a particular group should be written down. I think that's a perfectly valid argument. But that yeah, I know. I think that's valid. I think that's valid. I don't know if it's the first reason I would reach for, but it's certainly one of the valid reasons for say writing a history of a certain Native American group or a certain I don't know any group really.
Got it. Got it. Do you mind if I ask another somewhat difficult question?
No, go ahead.
So I'm curious. I mean, I'm sure we've you and me, we both talked to Ankit about this, and he's, I guess, similarly in the Mellon Mays program. But I guess, unlike you, perhaps, if I may
Hmm.
characterize broadly, like he seems to be more disillusioned with what research in the humanities can do for
Hmm.
society at large, and that's something that concerns it a lot, and that's kind of driving him to look for perhaps
Yeah.
ways in which he can contribute to things outside of just the academic space. So I'm curious, like how much, like why you aren't like black pilled about that, or whether that's something you've thought about a lot, or like where you stand on that issue relative to him. It's like why do you
Hmm.
have your specific stance?
Yeah. I think part of it is pure situation. Like all of my options outside of academia are more morally gray
Mm,
than academia. Like consulting when it comes to like Asian policy or just like working for an American think tank that specializes in East Asia is like a very morally
very
dubious
morally
endeavor. Yeah, let's just put it that way, right? So
yeah. No, for
at
sure.
least morally sus.
For sure, for sure. Extremely
Like there's
so.
that level. Um, Part of it's also just different kinds of conviction. Like I feel like even before I committed to history, I was planning on going into academia. Like
Mm, yeah.
even when I was in art, even though I was trying to pursue an art degree, I think I wanted to go into academia anyways. Like I don't really see myself working in an auction house where I didn't.
Mm,
So like what else? I guess like curatorship. Like I think academia has always been. Maybe I'm still haven't broken the facade of what academia is yet. That's a certain possibility. But I think I've also just been more. I've been enchanted with the idea of academia for longer than Ankit has been.
mm, sure.
I think it's also that I don't have any other transferable skill set outside of academia, or at least it's not a great skill set. Like Ankit has other options, and I think once you compare those other options with academia, academia suddenly seems a lot shittier.
Mm,
Whereas I don't have many other options, and that's like a reality that is I've just accepted.
mm. I mean, I would
But
push I would
uh-huh.
push back on that personally. I mean, I think just critical thinking and just building
Oh
writing
yeah, yeah.
skills,
I
those
mean,
are
like I have, mhm. I don't doubt that I could, if I put my mind to it, I could probably pursue law or something. But I don't really want to.
mm, right.
Like put it another way is Ankit has other options that he doesn't hate or that he enjoys and that he's considering, whereas all the other options I either find morally disgusting or I just don't like.
That's
So basically, I'm a picky eater, and I've picked academia as my favorite food,
okay. That makes a lot of sense.
even if it poisons me.
Got it, got it. And I guess like to push back on another thing you said, do you think academia is necessarily is more moral or moral in particular? Because I guess yeah, obviously doing consulting in East Asia or like
Hmm.
regarding East Asian foreign policy, that's extremely morally dubious for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah,
I guess academia is also funded by perhaps morally dubious organizations as well.
yeah.
And
That's
yes,
totally valid.
yeah, professors are not necessarily working towards the greater good. Some of them are just jerking themselves off, like
Oh
with
yeah.
so yeah, I don't
Uh,
know like how you like stand on that either. You know?
yeah. I mean, I think at very least when you're an academic, you have the degree of freedom to choose what you're studying, and
Mm,
I think that's all I really ask for. Or yeah, like
that makes sense. That makes sense.
yeah, I think it's just that like where the money comes from is obviously that's gonna taint your morals, but like unless you're printing money, how else are you gonna free yourself from that kind of or like be an entrepreneur, I guess. But yeah, my business would go broke within hours, so I'm not doing that. I
Yeah.
do not have I do not have I do not have that spirit in me. Hell
Got it.
no.
Got
Yeah.
it. Okay. No, that's very interesting. Got it. And just to transition also, how have you viewed your time at Amherst? Because it's a
How
long
have
way.
I viewed my time at
Yeah,
Amherst?
it's a long way from SF. So I'm curious, like,
Yeah.
how the people you've met there have shaped your worldview. Since I guess it's a different
Yo.
route from the SF ethno
Yeah.
place.
I mean, I think compared to a lot of other Asians at Amherst, I feel like I've actually enjoyed my time at Amherst a lot more, I guess.
Interesting. Do Asians not enjoy their time at
Or this is mainly like that one conversation I had with Daniel Wu, who was like, he was like, I should have just gone to UCLA or something like that. And I was like, God
Why? What do
damn.
you say about that?
No, because like he's like it's very difficult to take advantage of what Amherst has to offer unless you're a humanities major, in my mind.
Oh,
Like if it's really even pre-med and you're studying like a STEM major or double majoring, it's like you have no free time to actually explore classes.
yeah.
Like you're just so restricted by the set of classes. Also because of lab blocks, right? Like you're so restricted in what you can actually take that it's difficult to truly take advantage of the diversity of classes Amherst offers or all those opportunities. Whereas my life at Amherst is like relatively stress free because all my classes are short and like I take some even self scheduled classes, so it's like okay, my schedule's a joke. So in my mind, I think I was well positioned to enjoy my time at Amherst compared to a lot of other people I know at Amherst.
Got it. Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, no, I feel like as a STEM major, it's not like who does double major.
Hmm.
It's not impossible, I think, to
Yeah.
get good things out of education. Like, sure, I think a lot of times I do regret going to Amherst just because it doesn't have the raw resources or just classes and the things that interest me.
Hmm.
Like when compared to other schools, like
Wait, sorry to clarify. So you have at certain points regretted it.
oh yeah, often
Oh,
yeah,
well, okay. Well, then that's my point is that
yeah,
I don't think I've ever felt
got it,
that
got it.
sort of thought before. I don't think I've ever wished I'd gone somewhere else. I also hate the UC system, so
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
I think that that might play a big part in
Yeah.
why. So yeah,
Also, a question like, were you really intent on escaping California? Because at least that was a decision for me. I was like, I don't want to be fucking stuck in California like all of my life. So I want to experience living in other places just so I can like
yeah,
branch out and have like an informed
yeah.
decision. So I don't know if
I
that's
mean,
a
I
big
wasn't too concerned. I wasn't too concerned just because like I wanted to go to grad school anyways. So
okay.
I know I was going to be in some school for quite a while, and the chances of me being on the West Coast for grad school are pretty low.
Yeah.
So I would have had time eventually. It's just that my other options in California were also not that great. Like I knew I wanted to go to a small school, probably a lib art. So it's like either I'm getting into Pomona or Claremont McKenna, or I'm going to Occidental. And uh, let's just say my high school is blacklisted at Claremont McKenna,
Oh shit.
and
Damn.
so yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's interesting. But you wouldn't want to do like grad school in the UCs because I thought they had some pretty good Asian studies, but it's fine.
Asian studies, yes. Chinese history, it depends. Like a lot of them are do socioeconomic history, and they're not great. Like I don't think I'm applying to Berkeley or LA for grad school.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. Interesting. That's good to keep in mind. I guess I'm also
Yeah.
curious how you view, since you research Asian history, so I'm curious like what it's like for you to be an Asian American and what you think about that title, how like other people think about that title at Amherst. It's like a
Yeah.
topic, of course, and I think you have some interesting takes compared to other people I've taught.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I particularly strongly identify as okay, like I don't think I but on the surface level there are obviously Asian American things I identify with. Like, like getting boba or
Shit.
like going to a very competitive high school, or
Yeah,
these
or like
kinds of
listening
things.
to like NewJeans or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Like incredibly brainwashed.
Okay, so stop exposing me. I'm just kidding. Um, ah, fucking NewJeans on repeat. I don't feel. I guess like when people invoke words like solidarity, I don't feel that kind of thing. Like
Mhm.
my understanding or my identification with Asian America is very superficial. Like I identify much more strongly as maybe Chinese American, or even then just maybe Chinese, and then like in a separate instance American, but not really like Chinese American. Like I would argue there's as much difference between like me and some like a Korean family, a Korean American family down the road, than me and some Cantonese family living in a Chinatown 50 years earlier. Like I think the difference might actually be actually not might not be is larger between me and that Cantonese family than me and this Korean family down the road. Like I guess my point is that like Asian American history tries to create and I mean like in its function in its attempt to forge an Asian American identity, it tries to create like a continuous tradition from like Continental Railroad and gold mining to Chinatown to Chinese exclusion to high tech immigration to today when these are oftentimes probably more discrete than continuous. And I just find it difficult to place myself in that sort of
Hmm.
succession. Like in my mind, like, yes, it's useful to say things like Asian Americans, just because you know, it's a helpful term.
Yeah.
But as like a object of study, I'm not sure it's as useful or even as coherent. Like I think even the word Chinese American is pushing it when it comes to like coherency. Because this is like your this term is supposed to include like gold rushers who stayed with like Toisan, Chaoshan, like Cantonese immigrants, and like my parents
Yeah.
who are high tech immigrants in the
Yeah.
90s, like that this is supposed to somehow be one coherent group seems pretty absurd to me. And I think most people would agree with that. You know, is there are there things that are there things that are there parts of Asian American studies that are maybe useful? Sure. But I don't think we've quite landed on the perfect or the best sort of configuration of this object of study or like even the way we're studying it. Yeah, and sorry, I should have said this first. I am one of the few people on campus, few Asian Americans on campus to uh, I'm against Asian American studies being a separate department. I'm fine with it being, like a concentration in American studies, but I find it difficult to justify it being its own department on campus.
That's a very
Yeah.
interesting, I guess, stance that, yeah, as you said, not too many people have voiced. So I guess like, a question to lead off is, are you vocal about this on campus generally? Because I've talked to you about this on a personal level, but I wonder if it's too fraught to actually voice such an opinion.
I mean, I don't care too much about it. Like
Also fair.
I'm in favor I'm only against opening the department. I'm in favor of hiring more like people who study components or specific parts of Asian American studies. Like if you want to hire a person who studies immigrant literature, like on Asian, like California Asian communities, wonderful. I'm all for it. Let's hire more. Let's hire more. That's great. I love that. It's only when it comes to establishing a separate major that I find it to be kind of whatever. And like if they establish it, they establish. I'm not going to be like, oh my god, this angers me so much. It's a very kind of you know what comes, what comes. But just don't like if you don't try to rope me into. Sorry, it's more like don't assume that I'm going to support this endeavor. It's really only when other people ask me that I voice my position.
I see. Got it.
Yeah, like it's usually I think I just don't care that much about it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
In your eyes, what constitutes or what warrants the creation of a new major? I'm honestly not sure how I would answer that question personally. So I'm curious. I'm curious. Yeah, you clearly voiced that. I guess the foundations of Asian American history are kind of whack in that it's hard to like pull things together in a cohesive narrative, and that in and of itself may sort of violate some assumptions that would be necessary to make
Yeah.
it. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's mainly because I took an Asian American history class at Amherst that I was like, oh, I don't really like this. I
Hmm,
don't really find this to be very coherent.
I see.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's this, is that like usually when you study a group, like an ethnicity, a religious
Right, right.
group, it's like you study it because it's already in some ways coherent,
Hmm,
and now you have to examine why is this the particular identity that is mobilized. Why is it that Muslims in Nebraska come together, and like you're studying the dynamics that produce this group and that sustain this group. Whereas with Asian American studies, it's like the opposite way around. It's like you're writing this history to sustain the coherence of Asian America as a group. Not We're not studying it because it's already coherent. In my mind, it's like they've swapped the horses. They put the cart before the horse. Is that right? Did I get that saying right?
I think so.
I don't. Yeah, like you know what I mean. It's like the opposite way around.
Hmm, interesting. It's very interesting. Hmm.
I don't know what your question was. I'm sorry, Phil. I have no idea what your question was. I'm just
Oh,
rambling.
no, no worries. I mean, my question was fundamentally like, why doesn't this meet the grounds, or why doesn't this meet the basic requirements of being a major? That's kind of
Ah, ah, ah. actually a good question. I'm not actually sure.
Fair. It's like, yeah, I don't at all expect you to have an answer to this question because, like, who
Yeah, I mean, like
time to do that, right?
someone I was talking with someone about this, and in my mind, it's like if creating a department actually requires like a lot of resources, then I think those resources would be better put in different places and just making a concentration. If it isn't a substantial thing to create a new major, then what was the point? Like, was the point of this like agitating just for a symbolic gesture
Yeah.
towards Asian Americanism, which is like I think that's also kind of icky.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure.
What do you think
Like,
it's like?
when was the huh?
What do you think
No, no,
it's
like then are we okay? Are we if they are agitating for the creation of a new substantial major, then I oppose it on principle. Like I don't agree that this should be its own major. But if they're agitating just for the symbolic creation of a new department that doesn't actually mean anything,
yeah?
then it's like why are we pushing for this if it's just symbolic? Like isn't that kind of like that seems like an L to me.
No, that makes
We
sense.
just let them take advantage of us. Like
Facts, bro.
I don't fucking know. Yeah, I don't really know. This is not coherent.
No, it's fine. This is coherent, Jeff. I
Don't
appreciate it.
worry, Phil. Like whenever I talk for long periods of time, what I quickly realize is that I'm contradicting myself all the time. So
That's okay. It's very like human, I think. We're just bundles of contradictions, Jeff. But
that was kind of deep.
yeah, it was unnecessarily deep.
Oh, fuck, I should have just cracked open a beer instead of drinking whatever this was.
No, don't cough. Don't fucking pop open a beer, then you'll be even less coherent. Just doesn't help. Actually, does it help with your coherence, would you say?
But
Beer?
this is why like I don't like to talk about my research, Phil. It's because whenever I talk about it, I'm like, damn, I can't explain this shit, and then I have to write it down, and only then is it clear. Like,
Me
oh,
neither. Me neither, man. Research is really fucking
uh,
bad.
yeah.
Gotta talk.
You should leave this part in. Research fucking sucks. Like whenever I try to explain my research, I'm like, damn, I'm fucking contradicting myself all the time, and
Yeah,
then I have to
no,
write it out.
sure. Story of like my life and probably every other researcher's life, to be honest. It sucks. Just like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's like half the battle of research. It's just having fucking like catchy tagline to talk to wrap all your shit in. It's so annoying. And you have to repeat it like 50 times. That's also
Yeah. Like I was trying to write an abstract for a paper I wrote, and I was like, how the fuck do I summarize? Like, what is my argument? And it took me like 30 minutes. Like, oh yeah, here's my argument.
on this one.
uh,
It is an art, Jeff, to like take like this like miasma of like words that you're working with and just like wrap it into like a pithy sentence. It's just like very much yeah, you just like kind of work magic. You work that like that I don't know, that like last minute magic. You pump out those exemplar papers in class. It's quite impressive. Jeffrey,
uh,
interesting. I have to ask, do you have any other hot takes? Because I feel like
takes.
that's one of your hot takes, but I wonder if you have others that
Yeah.
don't know.
Other hot takes. Oh yeah, Ocean Wong is mid. I said it.
Why? I don't read poetry personally, so
His poetry is fine, but I just didn't like Unearthed or Briefly Gorgeous. I couldn't finish it.
oh, interesting. How come?
It was too much. It was too much. It's like okay, I'm a very smell sensitive person, so whenever I go to the department store and like someone's buying, let's say like a fragrance or like a perfume, like I can't be there. Like it's too
I see.
strong for me. Or like really strong hair product or deodorant. I feel like I'm feeling I'm being asphyxiated. It's really bad. It like for me that's what his writing feels like. It's like it's overload. It's sensory overload in the wrong way.
I see.
It's like it's like being smothered as opposed to like an acid trip, I guess. I think it's supposed to be an acid trip, but it turns out to be like getting asphyxiated. Does
I see.
that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
My right earbud just died.
It's okay. It's okay. Okay, no, that's interesting to note. Let me know if you think of anything else, but that's a good one for you. That's definitely one.
Yeah.
Good. In general, I'm curious, like how you think. your identity or sense of self has changed as you've gone through college and had like a bunch of life experiences and like perhaps also what you've learned from college. That's also interesting to know about.
Hmm. I mean, if we continue off with like this Asian America thing, it's like I think after coming to college, I've come to the conclusion that I identify even less with Asian America and I identify more with like Bay Area culture, you know?
So,
Like I think it has only made me even more just like Asian American, whatever, like whatever that supposed to stand for. Other than that, I think I've simultaneously felt like I'm more Chinese and less Chinese. Like
mm.
when I meet other Chinese Americans, I'm like, damn, I'm really freaking Asian. I'm really freaking Chinese. And then I meet international students, I'm like, damn, love America. So it goes both ways. It goes both ways, you know. So
Interesting.
not too sure, yeah.
Okay. And do you feel like you generally learn like more on a personal level or like on an academic level? Because I guess you do get a lot of academic tools to work with as you just take a bunch of these courses. But I guess yeah, you learn things like you learn soft skills, you learn intangible things through just talking with people,
Hmm.
meeting new people. So I'm curious, like, if there are any things that have crystallized for you that you think are worth talking about.
Uh, I don't think I've learned any like I don't think I've like learned any nameable soft skills like
Okay.
name like reifiable soft skills. Like most of them is just like I think I'm better at talking with just randos now.
Oh yeah.
Question mark thing.
No, for sure.
Not really sure. So I think I'd have to go with like more academic stuff. I definitely learned a lot more.
Got it.
Like
Got it.
even if I go back a year or 2 years, I'm like, damn, who the fuck is this? Like, what is this looser level argument? Like, I really wrote this? Jesus. So
Fascinating.
give me a second.
Also, what does it feel like to come? Oh, go ahead.
Vegetables soon, apparently.
What'd you say?
I have to go eat some vegetables soon.
Oh, what time?
I don't know, just whenever.
Okay.
Mom was
Yeah.
yelling.
I only have like a few more questions, but no,
No, no, no, you're good, you're good. Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. I can go eat vegetables whenever. No hurry.
that's so relatable though. Mom yelling at you
Gotta
to.
eat my veggies, otherwise your bowel movement is gonna be unhealthy.
No, you're good. I have like some psyllium pasta for you when we go to campus, so it's very useful. It's, you need to bring that barley tea. I miss the barley tea. That's like
I still have it. We didn't drink it all this summer because I was barely in my room, so we got all that barley tea.
oh yes, that's gonna be beautiful.
Yeah.
It's the pink pitcher.
Oh yeah, that's coming too.
It's legendary.
Yeah, my what is it? My Sanrio pitcher. Oh yeah.
Pitcher. It's so classic. I love that, Jeff. Jeff, what is it like when you go home every time and like interact with your friends, who I guess you spend
Mm,
time away from? Like, do you feel like you change a bit every time? Like, do you change the way you view your
no,
friends?
I literally devolve whenever I come home.
Fair enough.
Like it's they're so offensive, man. Like I sometimes you just like turn off your brain when you're with them. But I love them. They're all trolls, but
Hmm, it's fascinating. It's fascinating, Jeff. Jeff, what are your most defining traits? If you could name a
my
few.
most defining traits. Um, okay, in Chinese we have this word called "jai."
Try.
It basically means homebody, someone who doesn't like to go outside, who like doesn't like to travel, just likes to stay at home, like read books, play games at home. That's me.
Hmm.
So that first of all, it's just homebody. Um, like I think like I always like to say like one of my defining character traits is cowardice. Like I'm a very status quo person. Like I don't like to um you know rock the boat. Yeah,
Hmm.
like oh actually this is this what I'm about to say out. Like one time I was texting Callie and then she was like, "No, no, Jeffrey, rock the boat is meant to be rocked, pussy wet." And I was like, "What?" And that was just like my copy pasta for a couple days. It's like, "Boat is meant to be rocked, like pussy something." I was like, "What the?" Okay, regardless. But like my point is just sorry. Aside over, I'm just very much like a status quo. Doesn't like to try new things. prefers to take the safe road out type. So not very adventurous, not very like if I'm given a choice between something I know and something I don't, I've never tried before. 10 out of 10 times I'm choosing what I know. So yeah, I think like I can't really think of any other broadly characteristics.
What are like
Oh, my
greatest
baby photo
strengths?
showing.
What about your greatest strengths, Jeff?
Well, I can just read on end. I can read, Phil.
True. You can
I'm
read.
a scanner.
Scanner, human scanner. I
Yeah.
see.
I don't know. I think I can read, I can write, and I think in this day and age that's kind of rare.
Oh no, for sure. That shit is rare as fuck.
I yeah.
I like that. Literate king. Literate king.
I wish, Phil. I wish.
You are, Jeff. You truly are. Jeff, what makes you excited to get up in the morning?
What if you excited to get up in the morning?
Actually, no, I'm presuming that you're excited to get up in the morning, but like in a
What?
bigger,
Of
in a
course,
bigger.
the answer is a login rewards, Phil. Login rewards. I'm just kidding. That's an awful answer. Um, I don't know. I feel like I wake up relatively neutral. Uh, like I think because I'm such a homebody, like I can just kind of lounge at home and just enjoy myself doing like with nothing days. And I think, you know, sometimes I'm just satisfied with just that. Just trolling around at home, reading 10 pages of this, 10 pages of that, do a little bit of work, play some game with some friends, go out for a boba run at 11 p.m. I don't know. I think life is good enough these days.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Similarly, what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? Usually reading manga.
Fair enough. Fair enough. What have you been reading recently?
Mm, what have I been reading? Oh, I read that one. It's the one about like what is it called? Bruh, I forgot the title.
Please send me the title if you remember. I'll be curious.
Yeah, Maidens in Your Savage Season.
Fascinating.
It's like the one where about like the club that like finds out what puberty is and like decides we're gonna study puberty, and then I think it's like a comedy.
Mm,
It was pretty funny, but I don't know. It was okay.
good to know.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for Tonari no Stera to update,
Thank you.
but it hasn't updated this month.
Thank you. Jeff, I will ask you a final question. What do you think it means
Yes.
to be a hater? And like why do you
Okay.
identify
Oh, okay.
do you
Okay. We gotta
identify
talk
with the
about
type?
this. Okay. Yeah, that's my third character trait. I'm a fucking hater. Okay. Like I will literally complain. I can complain about anything. I will complain about anything. But it's okay. Because if I'm complaining about something, I'll eat it. I'll do it anyways. But I will complain the entire time. I'm sorry. I will assault your eardrums with war crimes. But I'll do it anyways. I don't know. Hating is just. I think it's just because I'm a complainer. I'm like a reflexive. I'm just a pessimist. Like, and I see something, I'm like, this is gonna fail. This sucks. This is shit. And then it usually doesn't fail. It usually isn't shit, and it's usually okay. So
That's nice. That's
think
true.
of it. Think of it like I don't actually know. I'm just a hater.
Do you think it comes
It's
from
okay.
like
I'm trying. Huh?
did you say?
No, I'm trying to improve. I'm trying to be less of a hater.
Do you think it comes from being like critical, like a critical scholar also?
No, I
No.
think it's just personality. Like by personality, I'm an impatient, pessimistic, cowardly person. So
Dude, don't sell yourself short, man. Holy shit.
No, I'm not selling myself short. I think these are strengths.
I
If
don't,
there's a nuclear apocalypse, I'm gonna survive, baby.
fair enough. Fair enough. But
No,
I
I'm
also
just kidding.
like selling
Yeah,
yourself like
I
a
know what you mean.
Osamu Dazai like character. I think it's like,
Oh God. No,
oh,
that's if even though Dazai's characters are like miserly haters, they are not cowards. Like I
I,
sure as hell am not gonna kill myself because I'm a fucking coward. Like I could never kill myself. This got really dark all of a sudden, but that's my point. Is like that's why I'm not a Dazai character. I could never.
fair enough.
My God,
Fascinating.
Setting Sun was really good
Oh,
though.
you finished it?
Yeah,
Good, good.
Setting Sun was really good.
Did you read Tokyo enough?
Yeah, I read it.
Oh, okay. I need to read it still.
I thought it was okay. I think you'll think it's fine.
Okay. How long is it?
Like 170 pages.
Oh, okay.
It's really short,
Okay,
and
good.
it's really simple prose. So I don't think it'll breeze by. Yeah.
And maybe I'll read it on the plane over to
Yeah.
Connecticut then. That's a move. Well, anyways, Jeff, anything else you'd like to convey or say? Fascinating.
I think I've already spoken too much, Phil.
No, you've not spoken enough, Jeff. I can never.
Oh God.
It's very interesting. I learned a lot from this. I can assure you, Jeff. It's very interesting. Thank you for giving your time to this pursuit. This is like, I don't know, 2 hours or some shit. I wasn't keeping time, but this is a very fruitful conversation. I appreciate that you like played along. You humored me.
Anything for you, Phil. Anything for you.
Thank you,
Just
Jeff.
know that we will do anything for you, Phil. Okay, we'll do anything for you. It's
Thank
like when Jack texted you, "Hey, Phil, can I have your firstborn child?" And you said, "Okay." You know, we have to return the
you.
favor. Come on.
Soul of my firstborn child, but
Oh, sorry, soul of your firstborn child. Like that makes it any better.
fair enough. No, but I got you, Jeff, and you got me too. I
You
appreciate it.
got you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Well, it was a pleasure. I hope you enjoy your vegetables, and
My vegetables await.
I will stop this recording. Hopefully, this doesn't get fucking wiped. I'm gonna cry if it does. That would really suck.